Welcome back, everybody. You got Will and I Man here from the Block Runner, and today we're gonna follow up on this project we've been following for a little while called Rarible. But before we jump into that, let's take a look and kind of step into the Bitcoin arena at this second here. So a couple of videos back, we've been talking about Bitcoin in this dumpening. And I've been very bullish, and turns out it broke a couple of resistance lines here, and we are back in action at 44 and a half. Man.
Nice, dude. So the momentum is taking off, eh? Does this mean like they were officially in the safe zone, 100K imminent, or?
Well, I think so. But 100K imminent is for sure happening after $69,000 Bitcoin. After
okay, yeah, of course. But, I agree with that.
But in order to get to 69,000, you have to get to 45,000, right? So we're almost there. So before we were, I guess, talking about Bitcoin, we were talking about Rarible, and we were thinking about, getting into this token here because of what they're working on. But let's kind of set the stage here and look at the current price of Rarible. So we're looking at $10 and change, and so we talked about, I guess, going back in July, August timeframe. This
even further back to that, like I think we definitely made past videos about Rarible, right? Like, during like the origin of the actual platform, because around those times we were kind of like, one of the narratives that was kind of circulating and that we were kind of pushing too is like, okay, NFTs and especially NFT platforms, they were just kind of like spinning out of thin air. So many people were generating these NFT ecosystems, but similar to like the start of DeFi, none of them were tokenized, right?
Correct.
None of the platforms, for whatever reason, figured out a use case or whatever to like launch a token. And similar to DeFi, we knew that as being like a necessary or at least a very helpful component to like, galvanizing a community or whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's where the initial interest for Rarible came from, and it worked, right? Rarible is a very successful NFT platform. It's up there, probably top 5, right?
Yeah, and tokenization or having an ERC20 represent your project. A lot of projects don't go through that process. Like, for example, OpenSea is not doing that, right? Yeah. They're going the more traditional route, selling equities and raising
they're getting a lot of public scrutiny for that, right? Because it's very against the grain of like the Web3 mentality, right?
Yeah.
If you're so much, you can't really emphasize community if you're not giving them the tools to like participate, that's what the tokens do.
Yeah.
So Rarible is a great platform, right? We've been following them. We know tons of people who leverage the platform. We witnessed the attraction, the allure of like earning tokens for activity on the marketplace. So, it's been an interesting project, but I guess it got to the point where, the price kind of suppressed more than we were anticipating. So there's the tokenomics probably has a lot to play with that. Who knows? So here we are today investigating. Like, what the hell's going on with Rarible?
Yeah. So let me bring up the token. That way we can see where the, here we go. So its market cap is $62 million, right? That's pretty low from what we gather with what they're working on. And so let's talk about that for a second. So they did a kind of a clean 5x in the span of let's say about a month, right? They did a 5x. So then we go look at their Medium article and we see what kind of spawned that 5x. And around that time, August 12th, is when they announced the Rarible protocol. So we'll get that into we'll get into the meat of things in a second. But just recently, in January 7th, they stopped the emissions of Rari tokens to people interacting with their platform, right, with their marketplace. And so I guess one of our criticisms of Rarible was that they had a good incentive model to encourage marketplace activity, which is exactly what you should be doing, but they didn't have a use case for the token. So it was a lot of sell pressure. Every time there was an emission, theoretically, it would just dump. And so with this Rarible protocol, now they're coming up with use cases and like valuable protocol like activity features that other people can use, other projects can use. Yeah. So we're taking a look at, if you look at the price here and the current valuation of Rarible, we're looking at a pretty good opportunity, right? Because the protocol that they're making is actually very, very useful, like extremely useful. So let's take a look at some of these features, right? Let's talk about this for a sec. So one of the features here is decentralized exchange with fee splitting capabilities. So what they're doing here is the idea of creating NFTs has been kind of like a one-man show, right? A single ETH address would reap all the benefits. And so what they're creating as a tool for a bunch of projects to use is a way to create NFTs with multiple payouts, splitting capability. So let's say, for example, Ivan and I come up with an NFT, let's say like a PFP project or whatever it is, we could split the income of selling these NFTs into two different addresses, and they're using this as a sort of like a protocol / like function of their platform, which is very useful, right? A lot of the PFP projects out there are not one-man shows, and so to create more trust, they're building this into one of their feature sets of their platform. So this is extremely valuable. Shared order book and liquidity. So this is another interesting thing. If you ever wanted to create a storefront, and once you do that, once you create that storefront, there's basically a storefront with no NFTs. So what they're giving you is the ability to create the storefront with existing NFTs from their platform. And then when your community comes into your website, your project application, and they start selling stuff on your store, it actually gets populated in all the different stores that have used this protocol, so that you tap into different liquidity pools. Yeah. So that's another huge thing, right? This is something that isn't exactly obvious, right? You never want to start with like an empty storefront, because you're not going to have anybody, you're not going to have any eyeballs. So yeah, I this is like another important thing that people won't see the value until it actually gets implemented. Lazy minting, right? This is I guess I don't know where this came from, this like phrase, but all it means is the ability to generate, like upon purchase, generate that NFT. Instead of minting a set of NFTs and like having them sit there, you mint them upon purchase, right? That's called lazy minting. And so now this is part of their protocol as well. Royalty standards and open source indexer. So I think this is the one that you liked, Iman. So
yeah, I guess there's like a discussion on the application across the board when projects throw out the word standard.
Yeah.
What that normally means, it's because every project wants to kind of create some form of standard, right? Just because it really, usually it ends up being your claim to fame. Like you've contributed something so monumental to like any, a sector of technology or whatever, to where it's so beneficial, so useful, so widely adopted, it becomes standardized. So
like a 721 or 1155.
Yeah, exactly. So these are very useful standards that creators, project founders across the board are leveraging to, turn their ideas into actual marketable, functional products a little quicker, instead of having to reinvent the wheel every single time, right?
That's right.
And then it allows for an ecosystem to kind of emerge because everyone's sharing the same standards, right? So I every time I hear the word standard, it's like you're opening yourself up to this wormhole of is it actually a standard, or is it okay to use the word standard before it actually becomes one? I think it is, because it's a declaration statement. Like this is a massive problem. Yep. From Rarible's perspective, they're providing a framework or a solution to it that they're expecting others to adopt, right? So
yeah, that's huge. I mean, like you're saying, that declaration statement means that they're recognizing a problem, and that problem is that when you sell NFTs on different marketplaces, those royalties that you originally had set on the original marketplace aren't persistent across different marketplaces. Yeah. And so the creator ends up getting screwed when users are selling their NFTs on different marketplaces. So with the standard, now the creator reaps the benefit no matter where these NFTs are sold.
Yeah. So if you kind of like just review all the bullet point features you've already gone through, like clearly Rarible is attempting to do something that's a little more, collaborative. This is important, like not just from NFT ecosystems, but like across the board when it comes to like blockchain ecosystems, whatever, like fostering collaboration between the different chains, the different networks, whatever you want to call it, the different NFT platforms to create like a grand ecosystem is kind of like the end game, I think, for everybody.
Yeah.
Because if we can achieve that in all sectors, like, that's where the internet level, play comes in, right? Whenever you have this mass collaborative global network of, frameworks, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
That's how you have the global participation,
That's true. So that's true.
In my mind. So this is why I think Rarible is like criminally undervalued from my point of view.
Yeah.
Because you don't see teams like, especially like in this valuation range, like attempting something so,
grand,
important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, they're identifying critical like flaws, or maybe not necessarily flaws, but it's just critical like needs within the overall NFT ecosystem. And they're attempting to, find solutions to that. So.
Yeah. We're at the stage in the NFT like space where projects need to build tools so that other projects don't have to build these like complicated like functionalities, like splitting payments, right? From a user interface standpoint, right? In order to split a payment, you'd have to modify smart contracts, and you could get into like, some errors if you don't do it correctly. So instead, you need to create sort of like an interface so that users who just want to spin up a NFT project and split the payment in multiple ways, they don't need to go and edit a smart contract to do that. And so that's why these things are so important. And so along that, they have this open source indexer, which is actually kind of quietly very powerful. There's an entire project dedicated to indexing a blockchain. And so what Rarible is doing is indexing metadata of NFTs so that people who understand like the rarity characteristics of a particular NFT, they can stack that against other projects and create basically another project that starts rating the rarity of different NFTs just because there's an indexer tool that enabled that.
Yeah.
So this is another critical piece of the technology that they're building, and it's a protocol so that anyone can leverage. Okay, and then upcoming features of the roadmap: improved documentation, complete an SDK. If you guys have been watching the channel for a while, SDKs are the lifeblood of everything that happens in the crypto space. And so that part here is very valuable.
Especially if you're like attempting to, again, like do what it is, just bring in more development activity. Like all these bullet points contribute to that exact thing. And an SDK is kind of like I don't know. What would you explain it? Like that's like the
fundamental to like growth potential.
Yeah. Like the developer, like, you already said it, it's the lifeblood. That's exactly how you explain it for a developer, right? So,
yeah, I mean, I've said this before. Developers are the single most important asset in the planet, outside of food and like water and sunlight. Beyond that, in terms of business, like the developers are key. So if you give developers tools, I mean, they'll build you empires, right? We've seen that happen before.
1,000%, yeah.
So SDKs are huge. So I guess to finalize and close our points here is essentially as of August, they're building out these features into their protocol that projects are jumping into. For example, a project that's using these tools is Decentraland. And so we're big fans of Decentraland, and their token has skyrocketed over the last couple of months. But they have a proposal with Rarible to actually implement this protocol into their marketplace. So this means that whenever you sell a wearable on Decentraland's marketplace, it'll automatically exist on Rarible's marketplace. and so you're tapping into a much bigger liquidity pool. And there was a certain time where it didn't make any sense to sell wearables on decentralized marketplace when you have a ton more eyeballs on OpenSea or on Rarible. So so this is a huge kind of integration that's happening between the two projects. And yeah, so there was a DAO proposal where it passed. Decentralized is going to be implementing this. The developers implementing this is H. Pravakos. We know this guy pretty well. And then here's, I guess, the initial kind of pitch.
Yeah. So this is just more evidence to, you know, that there is
support,
leveraging, I guess. There's evidence of the protocol actually being, you know, utilized for whatever purpose, right? So the Decentraland community has found that purpose, and they found a clearly good value add.
Yeah.
If they are to implement this protocol. So I guess that's the thing, man. It's just, the main takeaway, Rarible is not just like an NFT marketplace anymore. It's kind of like how it started.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that trajectory, man. And, you know, if you don't know anything about us, you know, we have an NFT marketplace, and, you know, what we have very similar, like, we've identified similar problems, like from the metaverse perspective, like, you know, there's a whole range and host of issues when it comes to like onboarding development activity within this ecosystem. And yeah, there needs to be tons of infrastructure created, and frameworks and tools, all these things in order to facilitate that, right? And so Rarible is they're jumping deep into the deepest of waters, right? They've put this responsibility on themselves to like provide this for the ecosystem, and for whatever reason, the market just hasn't picked up on that. On the value that it is they're attempting to create. But I guess that's the opportunity, right? If you could see the value that they're attempting to deliver, you know.
Yeah. And that's why we're talking about it. That's why we're talking about it, because there's a huge opportunity here. It you know, offline, we were talking about this for a good minute. It actually blew my mind, all the stuff that they were working on, because it's so fundamentally needed that it's obvious. It isn't as obvious that we need this. That's the problem with like a lot of the projects that are valuable, is that you're looking for the only important thing about a project is they must be working on solving problems. And so the challenge is understanding those problems in the first hand. And since we have our own marketplace, we know that these are problems that need to be solved. And so, you know, we were thinking about building this ourselves, a lot of this stuff. And if it's already built, then it's easier and better just to use the existing protocol, because they're talking about standards, right? If they're the first to implement a standard, you just might as well use it, because you know others are going to use it.
Exactly.
So this is a big deal, right? If developers are recognizing this as a value add, you have to be able to recognize it first, and then, you know, jump in. And now we're here, right? That's why we're talking about it.
Yeah, it just jumped out too, and we are definitely late on like this, late on our exposure, I guess, of like. Well,
here's the thing. I wouldn't call it late. I mean, if you go read this article, it was released in August of 2021, so that was a while ago in the crypto sense. But but at the time, we didn't recognize these were problems, and it's funny because only projects in the space actively building are the first ones to recognize problems.
Oh yeah,
and they're basically telling you these are problems, and we're solving them.
Yeah. So here's how we're gonna do it, and screw all you guys who don't like it.
Yeah.
They didn't say that, but that's the energy I got from these, you know, from this team. You know, like they have a clear vision in mind, a path.
Yeah.
And they have like a clear roadmap of how they want to contribute from here on out. Because, you know, they built the marketplace, it worked. You know, they have all the activity, you know, you can expect from an NFT marketplace. So now it's take it to the next level, because like we said, OpenSea has a lot of negative sentiment these days because of their
decision
not
making.
Necessarily decentralized approach to it, right? Yeah. So as we know, decentralization is it's a process. It's not like a thing you could just execute overnight, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
In order for decentralization to occur, like these little pieces, such as the Rarible protocol, have to fall in place, right? And then people have to build more pieces outside of that, right? So this is just the beginning of what we think is going to become like the automated marketplace, like revolution. Just like there's automated market makers that kind of like decentralized exchange networks and stuff like that. The same thing's going to happen for marketplaces, you know. So it's going to take a while though. But
I like that.
This might be next bull cycle narrative type shit. Who knows?
Yeah.
It depends on how difficult it is to do this, you know.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, I mean, it's a good opportunity now because now that Bitcoin's like doing a resurgence and Rarible is so heavily undervalued, like this is a good opportunity to get more than what you could get with Bitcoin, right? Potentially a 4x at best with Bitcoin. And so, yeah, the upside is clear for Rarible. So good job on for them. They're going to be huge. This is, like I said, you got to first recognize the problems, and once you do, then you have to find projects that are solving them, and that's what we found with Rarible. So,
we'll definitely keep an eye on them for many various reasons. Just because one, it's interesting, and for two, you know, we want to see if we're right or not, whether the market actually, you know, thinks at some point the way we do. Who knows? Maybe obviously, you know. The same thing kind of happened in the layer 2 space, right? Yes. Like in the early days, nobody really understood like that scalability was a problem until it was a problem. Then all of a sudden, like layer 2 became this big thing, right? So
that's true.
It's going to be very similar, you know, but we'll see. We'll keep an eye on this for sure.
I totally agree. All right, guys, that's been Rarible. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Give us your thoughts. Do you think Rarible is going to explode, or do you think otherwise? Make sure you follow us on Twitter at The Block Runner and also at MetaZone.io. And we'll catch you in the next video.
Peace.